What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical average American here today to react and continue learning about driving in Norway compared to driving in the United States. Part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, feel free to go check that out or stay right here where you are. That's fine as well. But in part 1, I just learned there's a lot of differences. I'm surprised. There's a lot of differences between driving in Norway and driving in the United States. I thought maybe we're kind of similar. We both have roads. We drive on the same side of the road. You know, what are the differences? There's a bunch. So in part 1, we were talking about, for one thing, the blood alcohol limit. How in Norway, you cannot drink as much and drive, which is honestly really nice sounding. To like, seriously, it makes everything sound a lot safer and probably saves a lot of lives, honestly. Americans are just willing to trade having a good time and getting drunk and driving with human lives, which is kind of sad when you actually think about it. We also learned about all the tunnels in Norway. Norway has so many tunnels. America has like no tunnels. It's so boring. Driving in the United States is so boring compared to Norway. That's the biggest thing I learned. Norway has awesome tunnels. So there's sheep. There's sheep. Sometimes sheep, they can get in the road. Seems kind of dangerous, actually. Americans should really know that particular fact for safety as well, so we don't run over the sheep. There's ferries. You drive your car onto a boat and go across water on a boat in your car. It's madness. It's crazy. It's so fantastic. So I'm really, really excited to see what else we're going to learn about today that Norway does in terms of driving that is different than the United States, because I can't even imagine what else there is. So, but I don't have to, because we're just going to be told by the video. So let's take a look.
Tip number 7 is expect a lot of roadworks on very narrow roads. Sometimes this means there'll be a whole lane of traffic blocked while they let traffic through on another side.
I'm sorry, I just have to pause again to appreciate how ridiculously beautiful Norway is and roads. Like, you're driving on a road and there's a freaking mountain and clouds. Like, I would be so distracted driving around Norway. I would definitely hit a sheep because it's so beautiful. You can't find this anywhere in the United States. Anywhere. It's ridiculous. Anyway, what were we talking about? Construction. Constructions. Why would there be more construction on Norwegian roads? I don't know. Oftentimes in American towns and cities, there's always some kind of annoying construction going on. So this actually seems kind of similar.
This was the biggest cause of delays that we encountered on our road trip, and they were harder to predict on your navigation apps as well. So you might need to give yourself a reasonable buffer if you're in a hurry or have an inflexible deadline, like a flight you have to make at an airport.
Is this because Norway has a lot more kind of interesting road situations, you could say? Like, Norway has to build roads through tunnels, around mountains, over water, a lot more than, say, America does. Does that require more maintenance and more construction? Maybe. Beautiful.
Tip number 8. Speed limits are not always appropriate for the conditions. We were lucky that the vehicle that we rented had a speed limit display on the dashboard. This made it easy to keep track of what the limit was wherever we went. Sometimes the speed limit was much higher than what it would have been safe to drive at given the conditions. There's a lot of bends in the road or variable conditions of the road itself.
Oh wow, we're looking at this awesome zigzag road down a mountain, by the way. That's in this video. I think I learned about this not that long ago, this exact road, actually, in this fjord. I'm just getting so distracted by Norway. Beautiful geography in Norway. So he's saying there's speed limits in Norway, but the roads can be unpredictable, or there can be weather situations where you need to know to slow down for safety? Is that what we're talking about?
Conditions. There's a lot of bends in the road or variable conditions of the road itself,
Yeah.
especially in bad weather, that makes it worthwhile to just slow down a little bit and take your time.
Okay, that's a good tip. That's honestly something that Americans need to hear, because Americans are the most impatient, rudest, bad, I'm going to say it, bad drivers. Bad drivers. Americans are bad drivers, I gotta say. Anywhere I have lived in America that I have driven, people are just crazy drivers out there, I gotta say. It looks a lot more peaceful in Norway, and I feel like as a culture, people have a lot more respect for each other. Americans are just honking and tailgating you, and oh my god, it's crazy. So many accidents that could be avoided if people were paying more attention. So I think Americans need to hear this part in particular. In Norway, whilst driving, take your time, slow down. There's a lot more characters to the road, a lot more bends. Like in America, driving is relatively easy. Like on highways, everything is so straight. It's so easy. Like there's hardly any turns when you're driving in between cities and towns and through the country. It's so easy. Norway, like, has some of the craziest roads I've ever seen. So this is actually a really good tip.
Staying safe when you're doing long hours on the road should be your top priority.
Yeah.
And that brings us to tip number 9.
Okay.
And that is that Norwegians are incredibly patient and courteous drivers.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's the biggest difference. On this entire list, I'm going to say that is the biggest difference. I was just talking about this. The narrator goes and says, Norwegians are some of the most kind, patient, understanding, polite drivers. Americans are the complete opposite. The complete opposite.
Can you say the same thing about the drivers in your hometown?
No.
I certainly can't. Road rage, beeping your horn, all of those things are just not cool.
Wow, that'd be so cool. Like, that's such a small, but such a nice difference. Like when traveling and visiting Norway, that everyone's just kinder, and that extends to driving. I've just gotten used to people being jerks on the road and being terrible drivers. I've just gotten used to it.
To give one example, I was driving down what I thought was a deserted road, and just before one of the famous Norwegian tunnels, there was a small turn-off for something that we thought we wanted to stop and take a look at.
Okay.
This was a last-minute snap decision, and I slowed right down to see whether there was room for me to pull the car off the road. What I didn't realise is that there was a car right behind me. He sat there patiently and didn't make a sound, and I felt quite bad when I realised that he'd been sitting there for at least 10 seconds waiting for me to move.
Yeah.
I waved at him to offer some form of apology, and once I moved out of the way, he just drove past without ever making a sound.
Wow, yeah. Like, that's a good example. If you stopped your car in the United States to look at something, people are going to get angry within 1 second. They're going to honk. They're going to try to get around you. They're not going to care at all about what you're doing or have any patience at all.
For tip number 10, we're going to move on to something a bit more practical.
Okay.
And that is paid parking.
Okay.
When inside the major cities and towns, there will be a lot of paid parking.
Right.
A lot of it is very obvious inside major parking stations, but on the street it can be more difficult to spot whether you have to pay for a parking spot or not. So memorize these 2 words. Mot av gift.
Mot of gift. Okay.
Forgive my Norwegian pronunciation there, but it essentially means you can park there for a fee.
Okay. That's very helpful. Yeah. I wouldn't know what to expect in a Norwegian city, where you can park, and there's all sorts of different rules for that all over the world. America has a lot of parking garages and a lot of street parking meters where you can park on the side of the street, Sometimes there will be a sign that says you can only park for 30 minutes or an hour, and then sometimes there will be a meter right there built into the street, into the sidewalk, that you have to put money inside of to pay for your car while parking. So in Norway, I guess you're just looking for this sign.
But it essentially means you can park there for a fee.
Okay. Good to know.
Tip number 11 is that some streets will barely even be streets. You're at the mercy of Google Maps or whatever navigation app that you use,
Okay.
and will be especially prone to very narrow streets or potentially ending up in someone's front yard.
This is a good example. Look at this. He is driving literally in between a bush and a brick wall. Thank goodness for Google Maps and Apple Maps. Like, I don't know how people did it back in the day. You know, even like 20, 30 years ago, before cell phones, when you just had to pull out your paper map and actually think a little bit. Oh, man.
In the narrow streets of the cities and towns. This particular overgrown back alley just looked like a normal street on the navigation app. And I remain grateful we were able to get out of there without hitting anything, anyone, or scratching the rental car.
Wow, so that road just shows up as this just shows up as a normal road on the cell phone, basically. Wow, that's crazy. It kind of fits in with the whole Norway theme, though. Everything is a little more adventurous and a little more natural.
Now, I wanted to give you one final bonus tip to prepare you for driving around Norway.
Okay.
And that is to keep as much flexibility in the timing of your itinerary as possible. There are a lot of really well-known sites that you can mark off on a map and tick off one by one on your road trip.
Whoa, what is this? What is this thing? I know this video isn't even about this, but what is this?
But some of the best stuff you'll just find on the side of the road unexpectedly, or from driving down a street you just like the look of.
Oh, I see what he is saying. I get it. Have an open mind about... Okay, there's a lot of Norwegian travel destinations that all the tourists want to go to. But when you're driving through Norway, look around and enjoy some of the not so obvious things. And feel free to stop and explore. That's very good advice. Very good advice for tourists. You don't have to just stay on the main road. You can actually think for yourself and explore some other things.
You will get the best out of your Norway experience by being open-minded to what you're going to discover and having the flexibility of time to be able to follow wherever your nose takes you.
Yeah, I think that is very unique, good advice for Norway. Like, not necessarily so true in the United States, where there is a lot of boring stuff. It is kind of what you see is what you get. But in Norway, it has so much character and so much interesting geography and cities and little things. It's really worth exploring.
Because not everything is in a guidebook or a YouTube video.
Right.
And nothing beats discovering a hidden gem that was unexpected that ends up becoming your favorite part of the trip.
Wow. Yeah. Man, look at this. Look at this. Man, he's just showing random stuff. Just random stuff. And I'm like, wow, where is this? Like, what is this? Okay. Okay, I gotta stop. This was by The Slow Traveler, and I give it a like. That was fantastic. That was so enjoyable. And again, I am so amazed and so pleasantly surprised that to learn there is so much differences between driving in Norway compared to the United States, and not in the ways I thought. Not like the laws are all that different. It's literally like the experience of driving is different. Like, literally where you're gonna drive is gonna look so different in Norway compared to America. There's gonna be tunnels, there's gonna be bridges, there's gonna be waterfalls, you're gonna maybe go on a ferry. You might go down a road that's not even a road. People are gonna be more polite as well. That's a nice bonus. It's just a whole different experience that actually sounds wonderful. The driving experience in Norway sounds wonderful and exciting. That's a big thing I noticed. Like, just way more interesting than the United States. So, I don't know. That is super cool. I enjoyed this a lot. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Norway and Norwegian culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.